Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Sovereign Society podcast. I'm really pumped and really excited to have Niki Cozmo here with me because we were supposed to have this conversation in July, and that's when I was in and out of the hospital, in and out of losing my memory, in and out of just like this initiation I was going through. So the fact that Niki's the first guest that I get to talk to since going to the Amen clinics and getting my brain scanned and working on deep healing, like this is such an honor. And there's a thing about divine timing, because with Niki's passion in hypnotherapy and my passion and her passion in the subconscious and really doing that deeper work, I literally couldn't think of a better time to talk with this powerhouse woman. So thank you so much, Niki, for being here.
Oh my gosh, it's honestly an honor and a pleasure to be here and to be the first one in your chair after so long. And I'm just happy that you're feeling well.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a journey, and I've been really devoted like throughout my whole healing journey of my passion of subconscious healing work and inner child healing, because a big thing for me, yes, it's for my own healing and my own experience of how I can be of service. But I know for me, my passion and devotion to doing this work is so that I can be the sacred disruptor and it doesn't have to continue on with my lineage. And so I know for me, after my first LSD experience, and right before I was struck by lightning, really, I heard like, I need to help heal my family. And that to me meant a lot of like healing my lineage and myself, but to be that sacred disruptor, being it ends with me. So I really want to hear, and I'd love to start the conversation with this about how us being devoted and committed to doing that deeper subconscious inner healing work actually sets precedent for our lineage and can help to rewire and the cellular memory of our brain, of our subconscious, and allow that to be passed on so that our children can even come into a safer space of less debris. I get like spiritual and conscious debris that they'd have to navigate through.
Totally. And I love this question or share because we see it a lot. I mean, I won't speak for you, but I can speak for a lot of people who are in this spiritual community and doing the work and becoming self-aware, whatever you want to call it, who are using all these different tools, whether it be affirmations or drinking lemon water, meditating, ayahuasca, whatever it may be. And there's a lack of integration going on. And so that's not to judge, that's just an observation. But when we go into the subconscious mind, what it decides to illuminate for you in that moment, it's like you can't unsee that. After you do hypnosis, you're coming into the world with this new self-awareness, and it's not always easy. Actually, oftentimes it's pretty confronting, but it's like once you see that thing and you know it, that's your own mind. People ask, is it mind control? Are you like making me do things? I'm like, not at all. Actually, quite the contrary. I'm just a guide taking you there, quote unquote, there. And it's your own mind, it's your own memories and your own experiences that are becoming illuminated. So with subconscious work, I think you can't really go backwards. It's like almost like you're forced to integrate because you're seeing things that were pushed down long, long ago.
Yeah. And it's really funny when you talked about like hypnotherapy is a mind control, because I think when I woke up from my last episode that I had in September, it was almost on the 9/9 portal, it was on the 8th, but I had like, and none of these doctors can classify what's going on because it'd be quote unquote malpractice, because Western medicine doesn't take into consideration these alternative methods of healing that are actually helping people, because they don't make money off of it in terms of big pharma and whatever. I don't really want to go dive into that, but what's the truth. And I've had multiple brain scans. And while, my mom was seeing these episodes that I had that were like seizures, I was seeing them more as exorcisms of me truly clearing out the last of the debris of any psychosis, paranoia, conditioning, mind control that has even been brought from subconscious programming. And when I came out, I felt like it was kind of like a hypnotherapy session where I came out this last episode that I had where I saw the world with a whole new perspective and a fresh new eyes. And of course they wanted to medicate me. And I was like, my body's saying, no, it's not, my brain doesn't even look the same from the scan than when I had the episode 2 days after the scan. So, it's interesting how a lot of people are also like, I think with the last 2 years, I mean, of course, people have been like diving deep into like the health and wellness, spiritual healing, self-realization, especially so I think since like 2012 was like a lot of a huge initiation for a lot of people. But I think with the last 2 years where everyone had like a timeout, there was a lot more self-reflection and people are also reclaiming their power back and have been doing a lot of inner child healing work because they're sitting at home and they didn't have much to do with that sense. So I just think it's really interesting to see like more and more people like understanding the importance of mental health. And that is also including the importance of like nourishing their inner child and like speaking up on what's going on and really transmuting trauma that has been stored in the subconscious mind.
Yeah, totally. These younger generations are like, it's like going to therapy is cool now. I remember when I was in probably not elementary, but maybe middle school and even high school and afterwards, no one was really talking about that, going to therapy or mental health or saying, yeah, I have depression or yeah, I have bipolar. It was sort of taboo, hush, hush. And I see it all around me now, even having younger cousins still in high school. And they're like, yeah, I had to get 5150 and that kind of sucked, but I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm like, how aware are you? This is like spectacular to witness.
Totally. Cause that's what I was going to say too. It's like, we're starting to really see the breaking of the taboo around mental health. And I think there is more curiosity around therapy and more curiosity around hypnotherapy and really, again, taking care of ourselves and like this generation of like teens and stuff. And I was talking with my cousin who's I think he's like 26 and he was with me over the weekend and we have younger cousins. I'm one of 14 grandchildren on my dad's side. So I'm number 4. So it's like I come from a very big Italian family. And we were talking and, a lot of that generation, especially the ones like Gen Z that were born like after 2000, they were also brought into this world during 9/11, all the wars. Like they were in a very unhealthy, like global situation that was really going on. Like the environment, maybe they had like, great home lives, great, but on a global scale, there was a lot of shit going on that was like the norm when that's actually far from normal. So I think a lot of those kids today, like you said, they're saying it's like, it's great. And they're talking more and being more transparent about going to therapy and taking care of their mental health. But they saw from a young age that subconscious mind being formed, because that subconscious mind is being formed between the ages of 0 and 8. So we know it's very much with the root chakra. And, I know you know this, but if people are listening, don't. And it's really fascinating to see like how that generation is also wanting to express themselves, but also how increasingly sensitive they are as well. So it's like, how do we start to really navigate like sensitivity with like sovereignty in a way of like strength and confidence versus like a victimized poor me, which I think a lot was programmed at a young age because there was so much of that victim energy collectively going on when they were just a sponge.
Totally, totally. And on that note, I feel like there may be like an essence or an air of victim mentality, but I feel like they're even going, well, yeah, this happened to me, or I saw this happen around me. Thank God there's therapy, hypnotherapy, this, that, and the other. Also, not to mention plant medicine. Younger generations are way more open-minded to non-Western like meds, if you will. And while sometimes I do see the victim mentality coming out, I think it's like, well, I'm a victim, but what can I do to change it? Wow, look at all these different avenues I have and different choices. And I just see that because I have a daughter. She's only 1.5, but I see that and go, man, people are just, they're like digging mental health. This has been my passion my whole life. And it was taboo to be like, do you want to talk about depression? Do you want to talk about death? And people are like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And I think that too. I mean, I think it's amazing. And it's like, progress in humanity, witnessing that. And I think like as we see that being reflected back to us, I think like older, like generation two, we're recognizing that we're also taking initiative of that. So we're seeing that projected in our reality as well. Because it's like confirmation to me of like, hey, this is like the work you're being asked to do, or this is here to support you so that you can continue to move forth on your journey.
Yes, totally.
Because that's something that I've been really focused on. I was actually with a former student and client who you know very well, Monica. And I was with her. She was in Palm Springs because she was doing Natalia Benson's coaching certification. And Monica's been a student of mine for like 4 years. And I was like, let's get brunch. And we talked for like 2 hours about like aliens and everything. And like, we had a whole like protective bubble around us and no one outside of us can touch us. But there was a moment where someone's fear was projected onto us. And it was really beautiful being there with like a friend and like a former student and like having this huge realization too of like projection and reflection, because I think part of the work as well, when you do like, when you're devoted, I should say, to doing subconscious work and recognizing patterns and how these things play out, you can start to, like you said, find solution, because these patterns will continue to play out and play out and play out. And this guy was feeling unsafe being around us because our masks weren't on properly or whatever. And it was so much fear and projection. And I was like, wow, this is an opportunity for me to offer compassion to him. Where can I find and offer compassion to myself about lack of feeling safety, which is subconscious root chakra healing work. And so I think, we can start to recognize and be devoted to that healing journey and start to see the world from this hawk perspective and not, again, feel victimized by like the situation of the world around you, but like taking a higher perspective and approach. I think that's also a great way for us to reclaim our power and share that wisdom down the line that can also help someone else.
Yes. You know what? I just thought of this quote, and I do not know who it originally came from, but it says, the only prison you live in is your perspective and point of view. And I love that, because although I work with, 30 plus clients a week and I'm there helping them level up, when it comes down to like my social life of like my friends who aren't my clients, there's been some real disconnect due to what's going on in the world right now. Yep. And people not agreeing and family members disagreeing, and it's creating all this like tension. And
is the perfect word.
Yeah. And like, I'm not the Queen of England or anything, but I'm over here like, there's always a solution. I'm so solution based that I'm like, well, let's just hear each other. We don't have to agree. Let's just hear and go, okay, cool perspective. This is mine. Awesome. And then go about your merry day. But I think everyone wants to be right now. And that all does come from subconscious programming. And so it's so important to understand what are the stories and the narratives running in our subconscious mind, because perhaps they can be dissected and maybe like widened a little broader, these thoughts and ideas.
Totally. And it's interesting because even with you saying that, I think this is also part of the test that we're having to navigate through again. And I think of this big mantra in Kundalini yoga that says, understand through compassion or you'll misunderstand the times.
Ooh, yes.
And so right now, compassion, yes. First of all, you need to learn how to be compassionate with yourself first, because otherwise it's going to be a lot harder to be compassionate with other people and sharing from that overflow. But if you can be compassionate with other people, like, of course, like gold star. This is like why we're here. And each of us have different perspectives. Each of us have different journeys, different habits, passions, gifts, whatever, traumas. So those also deflecting or reflecting out in like, the reality that they're creating until they have that conscious awareness of it. But again, I think if we can continue, I think this is part of the test of what's been going on is like, I think when we were like in quarantine, it was like, how can I be compassionate with myself and nourish and take care of myself during this sacred disruption. And then when things start to open up again, how can I be compassionate to others? Because I don't like, for me, especially after all these last episodes I had, like being in crowds, I'm so incredibly sensitive. And of course I can have like, my protection and whatnot, but like there's certain environments and spaces I just don't like. Why would I put myself in that situation right now? And so I just like pray of like giving it up to God, like take this. And it's also, again, an opportunity. How can I practice loving kindness? How can I practice and be compassionate? And again, like you said, like there's going to be moments of agree to disagree. Like, and I think in a way that also brings diversity into our collective as well. So it's really interesting to see how this journey is going to continue to unfold for sure.
Yeah. And you know what? We're never going to all agree, unfortunately, because we all have different brains. We have different levels of suggestibility. We have different, like, backgrounds, traumas, events, memories, experiences, even down to the DNA, which I'm not a scientist, but we're all so different that it's nearly impossible for all of us to be on the same page. But I love that you're bringing compassion into this, because that is like my super word that I say to all my clients and students when they're like, well, what should I do about this? I'm like, compassion. And sometimes they're like, oh, that's not the word I want to hear. I'm like, I know it's not.
That's the test.
That's why I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So totally on board with that. And you know what? Dare I say compassion all the time. But mostly definitely in the face of like global challenges, but all the time, even just when you're at the DMV or you're in the grocery store and someone's like being an a-hole, just have compassion,
And that's my prayer too, with especially like the coaching and wellness industry. Like I pray that as people continue to rise up and, get bigger followings or get that blue check mark next to their name or make however, whatever, 6-7 figures with their business, that they remain humble and compassionate as well to other people and not belittle people just because of maybe their financial state or where they're at. And like, I grew up in the service industry my whole life. So my dad's a chef. We had a restaurant for 25 years. My family's been in the restaurant industry for 42 years. So it's like the biggest thing that I was always taught at a young age was to treat everyone equally in that sense. And I think that's also like a huge test that we're having right now in the health and wellness industry is like, how do we also offer compassion to clients and students and fellow, entrepreneurs, where we can be humble, be kind, and really like practice what we preach about the teachings that we're being paid to share.
I absolutely agree. I know that I've had a few clients say to me that they feel like sort of the coaching, wellness, spiritual industry right now, at least as far as on Instagram, feels very much like the popularity contest of high school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, no, this is no good. So, I dive into that with them to go like further down. Well, who are you seeing who's giving you this vibe? And so I'm right on board with that there is no hierarchy in terms of, I mean, in an essence, if I'm your therapist, yes, I'm your therapist. I'm not your best friend.
Of course.
But I do blur that line though, because sometimes it does feel a little uncomfortable to be like, well, I know, so I'm going to tell you what you need to do. I think coaches, therapists, healers, everyone that falls under those categories of today's age, it's so important to, totally have humility. You can be prideful, but also be humble.
Yeah. And I think that's because, like, I don't know about you, but I just keep hearing such negative responses or feelings around the coaching industry right now too. And I've been doing this work for 8 years. And, so it's been, again, being in that hawk perspective and being an observer and watching, and how can I become part of the solution? The way that I'm doing it is by having a space like this where people can have genuine, transparent, authentic conversations that are truly integrous. And to understand, like, I'm very discerning on like, who are the people I bring into this space? And is there, again, an equal level of reciprocity of how much, we give and share and how much we're also open to receive. And I think that's been a huge part of reevaluating, especially in 2021. I think we've really navigated through. And I'm feeling optimistic because a lot of people are like divorcing the coaching industry in a way, and they're also creating or surrounding or upgrading their businesses that actually feel like unique and to them, so that remembering that there aren't any rules when creating their business. And that's why you're becoming an entrepreneur. Like it's not some like cookie cutter. And that can be part of the popularity contest too, is like having to like form and like shape yourself into being like this person in order to hit, 5K months or, 6K year plus, and I think that's, again, if you give yourself permission to be genuine and authentic and who you are, then I think you become a magnet towards people like in that niche. Like your niche is you and your gifts, and how can you really be that? And you'll magnetize the people that actually have that same level of self-respect that you do, is the way that I'm also seeing it as well.
I love this so much, and I just love you so much. Everything, that whole last like thought that you just said, I swear to God, you're in my fucking brain, because I've been having these conversations, and even down to like the exact words you just used, I'm like, yep. Clients will come to me. I just had one the other day, and she said, I'm just so like I have adrenal fatigue. I'm just tired and I'm over it and I'm hitting a wall. I'm like, take me deeper. Let's go down. What is this? And what it came down to was she took a coaching course prior to starting hypnotherapy, which told her you have to post this amount of posts or at this time every day, and it has to have this and that. And like cookie cutter is the exact word, or like there's this very perfect coaching blueprint. And I said, fuck that. I said, you post when you want to post, when you feel inspired. It doesn't have to be about anything specific. You just be you. And she's like, oh, like, I don't think I ever really felt like I had permission to do that, because I thought it had to be this way. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are marketing and business like tools that will help certain things. But I was interviewed on another podcast where she said, your branding is just like so spot on. I'm like, I don't even really feel like it's my branding, because it's just me. Like,
Yeah.
And I think if we had more of that, like you said, the authenticity, just showing up as you, post 800 times a day or post 0 times in 8 months, like do whatever you want, and you will actually magnetize the right people to you, rather than looking like every other robotic.
Totally.
And that's not a judgment, by the way. That's just an observation that I think some people out there who are getting their certifications, which bravo to them, maybe aren't there yet in understanding, like you can forge your own path.
Yeah. And it took me being hospitalized to really clear out that debris, because, when I embarked on the self-help journey in the beginning, like I absorbed everything and anything I could, enrolled and invested in any program, like someone I respected and I saw where they were and I wanted the codes, and so I would invest my money and my time. And I would also take course after course after course. And like you said in the beginning, there was also no time for integration. And so you can't just invest in these programs and just think like, oh, I'm upgraded in that. Like you actually have to also implement, integrate, and make it your own. Like what nuggets from those experiences, those courses, those programs, like really resonated with you, really hit home. But again, you knowing your gifts, knowing your passions, knowing who you are, how can you infuse what you learned as like guidance? It's not everything. Like you copying and pasting that isn't going to do shit for you. It's like, how did you actually make it your own, implement it, and present it in a way that is authentic?
Infuse. I love that word.
Yeah, I love words. I love, but I think there's power to those words, like these words, like there's a reason why they call it spelling. Like you have these words, and these words, they have power behind them. So to me, I don't know, I'm really passionate about helping my students and my clients understand that like your journey that you've endured, There are gold nuggets in there behind your legacy and the deeper purpose and the deeper why as to why you are here.
Yes.
And so it takes you doing that deeper work. It takes you getting out of that survival mode. It takes you from, like, I have a program called Thrive, and it's the whole thing is to help people go from survival to surviving to thriving, surviving to thriving, so that, you know, you can become fully embodied in your sovereignty. And so with you, I would love to hear, because I don't know if like you're asked this question a lot on podcasts, but this is something I've navigated through a lot as well. And it's death. I think a lot of people are still afraid to talk about death because either one, they're afraid of like how it's going to show on their brand, or you know, like make them less desired, or like, because there's not a good vibe only based off of the conditioning we've navigated through. But like, I'm someone who's gone through a lot of death in my life, especially at a young age. And throughout my teens and like my high school years, I went through a lot of death. And I want to hear about your experience and how death and hardship and trauma really supported you
Oh
in
my gosh.
becoming like the strong woman you are today.
I love that you framed it like that, like how my traumas supported me. No one's ever framed it that way, ever, 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 because that's precisely what it was and still is. And you know, I praise you for framing it that way. Although if other people wouldn't have known that, they're just not aware yet that traumas and deaths and hardships and challenges really are the gold nuggets to transmutation, really. And, you know, with this fall season here now, I've been really feeling my family closely. My mom, my dad, and my only sibling all died suddenly. And I haven't felt them in a while, but I've been really busy. I've been like busy, busy, busy. And now that the fall is here and I'm slowing down a bit, I feel them closer than ever. And I have my own hypnotherapist who I do hypnotherapy with. And when I was in my session the other day, she said, think of a time where you felt most accomplished. This is very vulnerable, you guys. I'm taking you into my own therapy session. And to be completely honest, I went straight to the moment my dad died, which was very morbid, to be honest. It was a bloody scene. I gave my dad CPR. It was a whole thing. And he died in my arms. So I was trying to dissect when she asked me, go to a place where you felt your most accomplished. And that's where I went. I was like, what the actual hell? And I had to sit with that for a moment. And I feel like if we at least have the understanding that a challenge is giving us strength, giving us knowledge, giving us wisdom to level up to the next level, then you've literally unlocked the key to life. But if you take your challenges and your hardships and even deaths around you, yes, they're sad. I validate that death is sad. But if you sit back and curl into a ball and you're in victim mentality for the rest of your life, then that's no good. And you're sitting on golden nuggets, like literal keys to locks that other people are wondering, how do I unlock this? Does that make sense?
100%. I mean, that's what I think so much of the reflection has been. And throughout my healing journey with like the last 4 months, I've been living with my parents because I was having like sleepwalking issues. And like, so I live in Joshua Tree. If I were to have left my house and slept walk, I would have been lost in the middle of the desert. And who knows, you know? So I was with my parents a lot, and I had a lot of hardships of them not being around because they raised, you know, they had a business and a restaurant, which is the hardest industry, the most underrated industry. And I had a lot of death at that time and a lot of support, like from a distance, not the support that I needed. But again, when I made the commitment to do this real work, it was a non-negotiable that I was going to do real work.
Mm-hmm.
And real work is the things that make us human, that we navigate through, that are actually, again, setting precedent for the rest of our lives, for our ancestors, for our lineage. And when we can take the time to hone in and connect with loved ones who may not be here right now as well. You know, they're still guiding us. Their subtle body. When we die, what lives on is the soul and the subtle body. So that's the song that's playing that reminds us of them, or seeing a hummingbird, or their favorite animal. Seeing, those are the signs that let them know, that let us know, like, yes, energy is still going and moving, and it's not going anywhere. They're here, just not in physical form. And I think when we can remember that we are also supported, you know, in those challenging times that we went through, that were gold nuggets that are going to be helping someone else, the people that we may have lost, they're still going to be proud of us, even if they're not here in
Totally,
the
totally.
physical.
Yeah, I mean, being a human is so strange, and I don't know if any of us really understand or know what the heck it's all about. You know, I have clients ask me, well, what, I just want to know what the purpose is. And I'm like, well, I'm not the all-knowing person of everything, but my opinion is compassion, love, growth, understanding, seeking, you know, like dreaming. And mixed into all that, there will be hardships. And so you're not getting out of here like unscathed, you know?
But
And
those
so
make us stronger, you know, those hardships, that once we've been able to overcome it, I think that's what gives us like a really deeper sense of strength and tenacity, and just overall like a pat on the fucking back, you know?
yeah, totally. And one of my favorite words right now is choice.
Mm.
And my whole life, people said, because not all my family members died at the same time. It was just kind of in succession. But after my dad died, how are you doing this? I don't know how I'd be able to do it. Mom died, and then sister died. And that's when everyone around me was like, probably looking at me like, is Nikki gonna be okay? Like, fuck, you know? I
Yeah.
don't know anyone else personally who's lost all their family. And I say to them, it's a choice. I chose to take those experiences and use it to my benefit. I actually say this to people who I think can hear it, but I'm going to say this publicly now on the pod. When my dad died, of course, in the moment, it was sad. It sucked. It was fucking, I was just like, what the actual hell is going on? Sorry, I cuss a lot, guys.
It's fine.
Um,
You're in the right place.
but very quickly, I understood that his death was actually a gift to me. Now, I know some people might need to like swallow that for a second. His death was absolutely a gift, that he was, you know, almost energetically or spiritually saying, Nikki, now take this experience. I died in your arms. Take this, help others, because we don't need to be afraid of death. We don't need to be afraid of the unknown. Trauma can be transmuted into like joy and excitement and creativity, and you're going to show people how. And I'm like, fuck, okay. And that's precisely what I did.
Yeah, that's part of the legacy, you know, and I think when we're building a legacy, it's about understanding the pieces and the journeys and the experiences and the challenges and the hardships and the traumas, the successes and the gifts, and how do we, again, use all of that, like make it into like a soup. I don't know why, but that's just what came to me. Make it into like a soup, but that's like a solution soup. You know what I mean? It's like you're putting all these ingredients of you and you're feeding. It's like people like eat chicken noodle soup when they're sick. Like you're feeding all these pieces that are going to help someone else. Again, how can you bring the solution? How can you inspire, impact other people through your experiences, through your vulnerability, through your rawness, through your authenticity, through your realness, letting them know like, hey, if I can overcome this, you can too. And I'm here to support you.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. 1,000,000%. And that, you know, I talk about death on my Instagram quite often, and mental health as well. And like you said, it invites other people to also feel safe to talk about those things. What I hear so often is, well, I don't want to post about sexuality because my aunt follows me on Instagram. I'm like, who the fuck cares? If you're, I mean, we don't want to purposely hurt anyone. If you're going
Totally.
to say something that is knowingly, purposely
Intentionally hurting
yeah,
someone.
then rethink it. But if you, I mean, if you have a desire to talk about the taboo, like death, sex, drugs, whatever it may be, or mental health, I say do it, because then you're inviting others to feel safe to do the same. And that's how the ripple effect happens.
Totally. That's how we create sacred spaces. And I think a lot of that is also being tested because it's going against the societal or conditional control. And people are still like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to be me. If I'm going to share my truth. And like we said, there may be an agree to disagree experience that may come up. But again, the test is, how can you still have compassion for that fellow brother and sister that is on this planet with you during this time? And I think that's part of, again, the experience that we are initiating to. Like, I think this is part of our roaring 20s that, you know, we're navigating through in this sense. And I'm really curious to continue to witness and observe how things are flowing. And along the way, I'm just devoted to the best of my ability to offer resources, to unapologetically speak my truth, to be me. So if someone else needs that little encouragement, like, here it is, you know what I mean? Because that's the way I really feel we're going to make an impact, because it's why we came here.
Yeah. And it's also important to remember that, in conjunction with us talking about the coaching industry, is, look, I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm successful. My job is thriving. I simultaneously am not healed. I'm not healed. I don't claim to be healed. I don't even think healed is a place we get to. I think it's an ongoing journey, but I definitely may be further along the healing journey than others. And like, I think that's going with what you said, is bringing people, helping people get to that point. But I say it all the time, and I'll be the first to say, I'm not fucking healed. I struggle with mental health still, and maybe will till my dying day, but I'm also okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, the healing journey is constant, because especially as you continue to up level, there will be things that you will be faced with, or you will be tested time and time again. For instance, us recording this podcast right now, my whole computer restarted.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden I was like, what just happened? What is going on? But I think that restart right there is confirming that you have permission to restart as well.
Yes, always, every day, any day, all the days.
And so if your healing journey looks like you taking a restart, resetting, reevaluating, reassessing, that is a non-negotiable. And I think that is also important in business, because if you're in business and you're devoted to the healing path, your business plan, maybe when you first started, may not be the same as where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to talk with you about, you know, as you continue to evolve and you continue to heal and you continue to grow, how you saw shifts like that in your business.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for I don't know, 12 years or so. And it's been doing all sorts of different types of things. It wasn't always service industry, like healing therapy work. I had my own online imports shop for a while, sold jewelry, made jewelry, you know, so the actual business itself has transformed like wildly. But back in the day, I was more concerned about money, making money, making money. And now at this point, this is not to sound woo-woo at all. This is very, like, I'm saying this very directly. The more that I just showed up in my business, sharing my healing path and being more authentic and pulling away the veil even more, rather than trying to be perfect and this is the perfect amount I'm going to charge you and I have the perfect product. I'm like, look, I'm messy and I can be your therapist. Does that work for you? And I actually got more clients that way, and I make great money, but that's not like the driving force anymore at all. It's how many people can I help so I can, again, that, you know, build upon that ripple effect, because we're all going through something, every single one of us. And I think I tried, or not even tried, I was striving to show up perfectly every time behind my businesses. And now I have no problem showing up like, I'm a mess today, but here we go. And people are like, yo, I really respect that.
I think that's part of the healing the habitual people pleaser.
Oh my God.
And the
Yeah.
perfectionist.
I'm a recovering people pleaser. So yeah.
Amen. I am here too. And there's still times where I'm having to reevaluate and check myself, because I can have those moments. I mean, definitely doesn't have as much power over me, but if I can find myself like slipping in, I would say like, oh, I can catch it a little more, especially as continue to up level and
Mhm.
surround yourself with higher people, or I should say higher earning people. But yeah, I think if you can just be you, and I think tools like hypnotherapy can support that. And, doing the work, giving yourself permission to take time for you, journaling, reflecting, nourishing you, being in nature. For me, working with psychedelics has been a massive tool for a deeper reevaluating and deeper reassessing. And, even when I was been going through the doctors, and I went to the Amen clinics, which is like one of the top spaces for brain research and, looking at that, I told him straight up, I said, I wouldn't be where I am today without psychedelics and plant medicines. They were huge tools that helped me overcome severe depression. And his response
Mhm.
was, that's really great to hear. So that in itself showed me the times are changing when there's people who are doctors who are also more, this was my psychiatrist I was telling this to, that are also more open to it. And I pray that, with what's going on, I think there's going to be a rise of like more issues with mental health, especially over the past couple years, that they find or they recognize more of these modalities like hypnotherapy. And I mean, they are with psychedelic therapy, but even like Ayurveda, Eastern medicine, that they're starting to bring in and consider these alternatives as well as true healing. How do we like create like a wellness system and
Mm.
really support health, and
Yeah.
really support, again, solutions. I think that's what's been really fueling me this summer, and seeing like, a $30,000 bill at the hospital for overnight just for them to give me an IV of water to sleep there and to give me an MRI. You know what I mean? And things like that, like, again, rather than feeling victimized, it's like, cool, how can I be the solution? So I'm doing my best to, bring on people like you and people in alternative medicine to also help people understand that there are other solutions that have a track record of helping people as well.
Oh my gosh, yes. And that reminds me of a sort of recent interaction I had with a friend. And she said to me, well, I just can't believe you've never been to therapy after losing your whole family. Because I hadn't. I had not chosen to do traditional talk therapy with like a psychologist. But what I had chosen was psychedelics. I traveled through third world countries. I lived in third world countries. And that was the path I took. I got into Ayurveda. I did all of the alternative things. And I kid you not, it was all my friends from back then, I'd say 14 years ago, who were like, Niki's lost her mind. Niki's verbatim, Niki's gone off the deep end, was one of the ones I heard from a dear friend who we're still friends now. But look, the healing path is going to look different for everybody.
Totally.
But the alternative options are becoming more mainstream because of social media and this younger generation, and they work. Just because we grew up, if you're listening to this and you grew up in a Western society, just because we grew up being told, well, you have to take this little white pill from the pharmacy and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's one way, but what other ways are there? And there are hundreds, if not thousands of other ways.
Now, that was the approach that I took from this whole situation. Like, they wanted to put me on gabapentin, and doing research on it, like side effects are seizures and making me loopy. And I'm like, why would I want to put myself on that? I'm not saying I'm a doctor. Like, I'm not saying don't stop taking it if like you need to take it, but this is just my experience. But the doctor, the psychotherapist, also gave me an option to take GABA supplement. And I've been taking that for the last month before bed. And that's been helping me. In a couple of days, I have a sleep study to see what's going on with my brain waves, like when I'm sleeping. So I'm choosing, and I also know that not everyone has the privilege to invest in these experiences as well. So I'm checking my privilege with that, and I'm recognizing that, and I'm grateful for it. And I also want change for this to also be more readily available for people who may not have the same privilege. So I do want to make that clear, because that's me being humble, me being honest, me being real about the bigger picture that's going on. And it's, and seeing what's happening. but I am grateful that, there are free solutions like podcasting where we can have these conversations and offer resources and support, and the big word support.
Mm.
you
Yeah,
know?
totally. Totally. And like you said earlier, nature is probably one of the best free support systems out there. And I kid you not that if you just go take like a 15-minute walk or go lay in the sun for 15 minutes as well, like a lot will change.
Yeah, the vitamin D and the nourishment. And I just want that to be shared more. So I'm curious, this last question I want to ask you is, what is your prayer or your vision on seeing the rise or the interest in hypnotherapy? And how do you see that really making an impact in our society?
Yeah, my prayer is that people understand that they're not alone in their traumatic experiences. I have a deep, deep understanding that all of us have been through some type of trauma. And some people go, well, I've never really had a traumatic experience. But whether that's with a capital or lowercase t, we've all been through something that felt like a hardship or a heartbreak or a breakdown. And so my prayer is that through the use of hypnosis and hypnotherapy, people can, again, big word, feel supported, understood, seen, heard, and know that they're not alone in this, because none of us are. But I get it, because I have even felt alone and I have all the fucking tools. So just
Yeah.
to know, you can always come back to hypnosis, hypnotherapy, or your subconscious mind to do a little excavating and figure out, okay, what is actually happening here and how can I find the solution?
Mm. And the thing I want you all to remember, like the word soul is in solution. Like SOL can mean the sun, which is the life force. As
Mhm.
I hear soul, SOUL, even though it's not how it's spelled, but SOLU. So maybe some dyslexic terminology of soul is still in there. But I think like when we allow our soul, our radiance, our vitality to lead, to be the answer to some of the problems, maybe individually, collectively, in our community, at the world at large. I think that's how we really start to implement and see these waves really shifting, and the realities that, we are all coming together, co-creating together, in this space. I think that's how we implement real change and really have an experience, not just again for our generation, but what we're setting for our children's generation and clearing out from the generations behind us. And I think that's the bigger drive, I know, for me, that has been part of my devotion and my commitment to doing this work. Yes, for me, but also to help and support, the life that the rest of my family seeing while they're alive, or clearing out the debris from my immigrant ancestors or for my future children. And those are things that I've been so devoted to because I believe in myself and I believe in humanity, that we can do this together.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was so beautifully said. And it reminded me of my daughter had to have open heart surgery at 6 months old. And the amount of times, bless their heart, with the amount of times a nurse or a doctor would say to me, well, she won't remember. Good thing she's so young. And I kind of kept my mouth shut, but I would go home and I would express to a friend of mine and say, do they know that they're talking to like a subconscious specialist? Like, I study the subconscious mind. It is going to have an effect on her in some way, shape, or form. But that friend reflected back, well, isn't she lucky to have you as a mom? Because you're going to bring the support and awareness to her. You're not going to baby her and be like, you had open heart surgery, poor you. But if she has questions or concerns, or maybe these unidentifiable like experiences, I can kind of walk her through it and guide her. So I'm on the same page with you, where it's just helping humanity. The more of us awaken and become aware. By the way, becoming an awakened human doesn't mean you're perfect. I think sometimes we get that twisted, but becoming awakened, remaining in a compassionate nature and just leading with love, that's all we can do to better, like you said, better the generations after us.
Yes. I mean, I can keep going deeper with you because I live for these conversations. But to close out, I want to ask some lightning round questions if you're
Yes.
open to it.
Yeah.
What does sovereignty mean to you?
Ooh, sovereignty. It means like I'm so visual that I close my eyes. It feels like empowerment. It feels like empowerment without being shaken. Like a tidal wave might come, but I'm like, no, I'm still sovereign. I'm still good. It's like a pillar in a storm.
Ooh, that's awesome. Yes, I love that. What was the best concert or show you've ever been to?
Oh my God, hands down. And I've been to a fuck ton. It was Fleet Foxes at Outside Lands in San Francisco. And it was like the trees. It was just so majestic. Fleet Foxes is like a spectacular band, but it was also the atmosphere of San Francisco and the fog and the trees. I will never, ever forget that.
I love that. What would you say to younger Niki?
Oh, I have your back. I love you. You're never alone.
And where can we find more of you?
Yeah, Instagram is where I'm most active. So that's at Niki Cozmo. And then my website as well is nikicozmo.com.
And all of those links are in the show notes. And the last question, what last little nugget of wisdom do you want to share to whoever's listening?
Well, are you guys ready? Take a deep breath in. One day you will die. I say that with so much love.
Oh, that made me lol. That was great. That's probably like the best answer I've gotten from last little nugget of wisdom. So with that, make the most of what you have while you're here, because tomorrow's never promised, right?
Right.
Yes. Well, again, thank you so much, Niki, for being amazing. And, like I said, this was such an incredible time to chat with you. And I'm so grateful. And to have you be my first guest since, losing my memory and being in and out of the hospitals and 3 MRIs and countless blood panels and them still not knowing what's going on. We'll just diagnose you as highly anxious. I really appreciate you being here and you being devoted to your dharma of really helping people heal on a deep level, because I'm telling you all, if you're listening, if you are committed to the subconscious work, the life that you will be able to create and experience is beyond your wildest dreams. Truly.
Oh my gosh. Yep. True that. I appreciate you so much. And I'm so glad you're doing well.
Thank you, Angel. I appreciate you. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Go check out Niki and let us know what you think. And we'll be seeing you more soon. Take care.